still has 82% of all running back carries in this backfield, so we know it belongs only to him. I told you guys at the beginning, I tell you every week, I'll tell you one more time. I'm not here to give you players that are playing great, that are elite, and that everyone knows to start. It'll waste your time and mine, okay? It's the players who you drafted as flex players or later, or the guys you drafted early who are underperforming and starting to spike your anxiety that I want to talk about. It's not only more interesting, but a lot more helpful, I'd hope. That's why we need to give Jonathan Taylor another shot this week. It's true that Taylor's explosion in the final quarter of his rookie season came against bad teams and worse defenses. But Taylor has been involved in mostly all negative game scripts to start the year, and the Colts ranked 21st in run play percentage, where last season they were 9th. He's still handling 67% of running back rushing attempts, though, and leads the entire league in goal line carries with 6, which is both encouraging and disappointing because despite the opportunity, Taylor has yet to punch one into the end zone. You still have to expect some positive regression here, though, even if Quentin Nelson is sidelined. Taylor converted 8 of his 16 goal line carries into touchdowns last year, and Football Outsiders still ranks Indianapolis 7th in adjusted line yards and 4th in stuff percentage this season, which is good. I don't love Nyheim Hines' increased usage at all, and Taylor's 11 touches last week were definitely concerning. But in what should be a neutral game script against a far from explosive Miami offense, this could be our last chance to get a taste of last year's production out of Taylor, and we have to roll the dice. Before we get to our number one player, and I think you're going to like this, going off the beaten path a little bit because that's what we do here. I want to hit on 3 guys that you should probably have on your bench and not in your starting lineup this week, starting with Damian Harris. Very simple. Tampa Bay's run defense is spectacular. They have stymied or stifled every single running back they've faced this season and pretty much everyone they faced last year. Expect Mac Jones to turn to the aerial attack and for Damian Harris to have a rough day. Meanwhile, Miles Sanders, I could lose my mind at the usage for this guy. He's the most explosive and the most dynamic player in this offense, yet Nick Sirianni, seemingly the reincarnation of Doug Peterson, but worse, decides to give him 2 carries and 2 receptions in the entire game. I mean, what? How does that make any sense at all? The answer, it doesn't make any sense at all. Miles Sanders should be a starter every single week, but we can't right now, even against the Kansas City run defense that's been absolutely torched. The only hope here is that the Eagles keep it close enough, even with this battered offensive line, and Nick Sirianni learns from his mistakes for at least a week, but I don't see it happening. I got to take the wait and see approach here until they turn things around, if they do. And lastly, Robbie Anderson. Sure, he may have had a rapport with Sam Darnold back there in New York, but it doesn't seem to be the case anymore. DJ Moore is the clear number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 option in Carolina. And now that Christian McCaffrey's out, it just makes this offense even more one-dimensional. I'm out on Robbie Anderson until we see some progress. And now for the number 1 must start for week 4. It's what you... I just toy with them now, Matt.
Yeah, you got it.
I got drunk the one night and I came inside. Did you say mics are hot? Nah, whatever. Whatever. And I come in, I'm like laying in bed reading the comments on one of the fantasy football videos. You know, 99% of them are nice and just questions, but then the other ones are people looking for trouble. And, well, I gave it to them, Matt.
Yeah. You went all in.
Went all in. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show. Same faces, -1. I'm Dave Loughran, filling in the host role for Eitan Shander, who wasn't able to make it today. Joined as always by Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. Hit your boy up and follow me at Laffy_D on the Twitters, which if you're not on Twitter for fantasy football yet, it's a mistake. I mean, just stay away, Matt, from there's some just wasteland.
Basically every other part of Twitter except for sports Twitter.
Exactly. Right. Most of Twitter is toxic shit, but the fantasy sports Twitter is pretty valuable, I will say. And it's a good spot to get some news and information and some stats and all of that stuff. But anyway, happy to have you guys with us as always. First thing you do, you walk in the store, hit that thumbs up, the virtual door, of course, hit that thumbs up, only takes a second and we're grateful for it. We crossed the 13,000 subscriber threshold not long ago. And well, if you like the content, hit that thumbs up. And Matt, you know what I say. We'll gladly refund their misery if they hate it here and they've stumbled upon it accidentally and decide it's, ruined their day. Tomorrow will be a better day. They'll never have to hear from us again.
Yeah, it's very easy to get the algorithm to show you what you need to, and we're pretty confident that this show right here is what you need.
I think you're right. I think most people will want to hang out, and hit us up in the comments if you're watching this afterwards. Let us know what you think. Give us your hottest takes of the week, and of course, I read them all. I try to comment on all of them as well. Generally speaking, sober, Matt, because I try and be polite and respectful. And
that's very good of you.
Let's have some fun. You guys got any questions? We'll hit you with some hit us with some start-sit questions. We'll get to all of them. But before we do, we got to get into Thursday night football because a lot of people looked at this as just a rout and a game that would not stay competitive. But there were some big developments there from an injury front and just looking like, hey, even though Carlos Hyde was sidelined with that shoulder, who knows? Maybe it was just like, yeah, you're sitting anyway, pal. Your shoulder hurts. James Robinson looked really good. I mean, physical running looked really, really good. And on the same side, Trevor Lawrence, while he wasn't perfect, right? He wasn't perfect for a rookie and ended up losing the game. He made some really good throws into some tight windows and managed to avoid getting picked off. So I thought all in all, it was a really good showing for a Jags team that we haven't seen that from all year long.
Oh, by far, this was the best effort, really probably in over a season from this Jaguars team. And boy, the melodrama with Urban Meyer just heartbroken after the game. I don't know if you saw some of these videos where he's slamming the table and he's, apparently he's the coach that hates to lose the most because other NFL coaches just love to lose. But no, I digress. The Jaguars offense lost a huge piece in DJ Chark early on in this game, and despite that, played their best offensive game. Now, the defense, they literally gave up a score on every single possession of the Bengals in the second half, so there's a lot to say there. But offensively, there was a lot to like there, from James Robinson getting a 2020 level workload to Trevor Lawrence showing some mobility there with some keepers in the rushing game. And in general, the best thing from the passing game was Laviska Shenault being used all over the field. So a lot to like there, despite the loss.
Yeah, I think if you have Laviska Shenault on your teams, you haven't been starting him recently, right? You and I talked about it. Yards per reception, just overall depth of target. None of that stuff looked good at all going into yesterday's game. I'm beginning to wonder, though, because, Tavon Austin came in and got some work in DJ Chark's stead. But we saw the playbook really open up for Shenault. Early in the game, there was one play that was probably targeted 25 yards downfield. They weren't able to convert. It was on a 3rd and long. Then a 50-yard reception, easily the longest of his career by at least 49 yards. And all in all, he saw a lot of opportunities deep. He's very good and he had another one down the sidelines where he evaded tacklers and picked up probably 15, 20 yards after the catch. If you're getting Laviska Shenault involved in spots like that and DJ Chark is out, I'm here to tell you right now, Matt, especially if Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence continue to develop as a team, granted, rookie coach in the NFL, first-time coach, rookie quarterback, you may be looking at that breakout season from Shenault, and much of that may be thanks to DJ Chark not being able to run those deep routes and having to use Shenault kind of as a replacement and now all over the field.
Yeah, that's really what we're going to say here, is that the offense becomes just that much more concentrated. And then when you add on the fact that Carlos Hyde apparently got to the stadium and his shoulder, quote, didn't feel right, and so they held him out, then you're talking about really 3 offensive players that are going to be taking a bulk of the opportunity for this team. And yes, we saw some variance last night where Marvin Jones was blanketed by the Cincinnati defense. And you know what? We might have to say they're getting pretty good at covering wide receiver ones here. But certainly Shenault taking advantage was the biggest storyline here. 6 receptions, 99 yards. Those who were playing DraftKings were probably tilting their face off that he didn't get one more there. But I just think that ultimately, if you see optimism in this Jaguars offense in Trevor Lawrence, then you have to like Jones and Shenault going forward. We'll probably see more Dan Arnold. That's for sure. He played, got 2 receptions, 29 yards, actually was second on the team in receiving That's not nothing. But as we keep alluding to, the real story here for me is James Robinson finally getting that workload and looking good on it. That's, if you have him in fantasy, you got to be thrilled. Actually, a big trade in my home league went down right before the Thursday Night Football. The person who traded for Robinson must be absolutely thrilled.
I'm not willing yet to say that I'm bullish on this Jacksonville offense after one game against the Cincy defense that I think was probably a little overrated heading into week 4's Thursday night showdown. But Matt, I would say the stock is definitely increasing. And if you had to guess, you would think that they're going to continue to improve. They're not going to finish at the top of the league. You know, they're not going to be rivaling the LA Rams in terms of offensive efficiency. But I think this is an offense right now, just given the weapons, that can be a lot better than a team like the Jets, right? That can be a lot better even than a team like the Giants, given their injuries right now. So I definitely would say the stock is rising there. We got a super chat too. And by the way, Sir Shibe or Sir Shibe, I agree. Crypto Twitter is not bad. Neither is NFT Twitter. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, keep me away. And sports Twitter. Overcome, thank you for the super chat. Start Ryan Tannehill with Julio and AB out. Great question, Matt. For me, it comes down to who can you stream? And because if it's just Tannehill and you don't have any good streaming options, I'd be fine with that. But this could be a Derrick Henry 35 touch game for sure.
Yeah, I don't know how you see it not being that with both of them out. As we talked about on the Awesemo DFS channel yesterday, they just want to get through this game against the Jets in the same level of health that they currently are, which is not very healthy. So is it possible that we do see a player step up here? Could you start maybe Anthony Ferkser or something like that? Maybe, but really see if you can get a streaming option. Maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo is down there. Even Taylor Heineke doesn't have that type of a matchup against the Atlanta defense. I bet there are players on your waiver wire in 1 QB leagues. In 2 QB leagues, you're probably stuck playing him. And he's playing the Jets. Don't freak out.
In 2 QB leagues, listen, you can still do worse than Ryan Tannehill. You know what I mean? There's no doubt. And to be fair, Ryan Tannehill does have some mobility in the sense that he can rush for touchdowns and maybe he'll take off a little bit. He's not, of course, Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson, but you know, he had 56 yards rushing last game, right? He had 4 for 27 the game before that. Last year, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Tannehill rushed for 7 touchdowns. So there's still that ace in the hole, that trump card, so to speak, Matt, that Tannehill can still use his legs if nothing's open. And that makes him at least a little bit more appealing than it would be for like Matt Ryan if Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts were out.
Yeah, absolutely. He does call his number at the goal line, and that really matters for fantasy football.
On the other side of this game too, and we're going to talk about all of the injuries, what you should do as far as replacements go, talk about some buy low, sell high, guys that you should hold on to. That's always important. People start freaking out. The anxiety spikes. You start to shake a little bit. You don't know what to do. We're here to tell you, pump the brakes. It's going to be okay. And then we'll still get some start sit action and take all of your questions. If you got those questions, throw them in chat and we will compile them for the end of the show. But I mean, do you think that the Bengals offense, just given what we've seen, is average, good, or below average?
Oh, I'll say they're above average right now.
Okay.
They're efficient enough to call them above average. And you know what? They're taking care of business against teams that they should take care of business against. The Minnesota secondary is not that strong. They needed to get their feet out under them, if you will, for a minute. Literally, Jamar Chase's first game on an NFL field, Joe Burrow's first game back from injury. But I really like what I saw from the second half adjustments. They basically saw what the Jacksonville Jaguars defense was doing to them, and they were able to adjust on the fly in the way that says, okay, maybe this team does have some juice. And, maybe that Pittsburgh win last week wasn't a fluke. They just are able to be much more physical and much more efficient on a per pass basis than they were last season. Remember, the fantasy goodness from the Cincinnati Bengals last year was in the immense volume that Joe Burrow had as a passer. We're not seeing that so far this year. But if you're going to get 348 passing yards on just 25 total receptions, I'm fine with that. Now, especially when they get fully healthy with T. Higgins, they could have some serious firepower here. And it was good to see CJ Uzomah step up in such a big way.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of our longtime Awesemo subscribers and someone who's always active in the Slack chat, active in the community, had that nice avatar up there yesterday on DraftKings, Matt. Dude won $560,000 with CJ Osoma in the captain spot at 0.4% on the DraftKings showdown slate. 560K, man. That made me happy to see it.
Unbelievable. Life-changing. And, you know, it was cool. I was watching a little bit of the breakdown there about how Joe Burrow audible to Uzoma at the end, recognizing the play call, realizing that a jailbreak screen to a tight end was going to win you the game there. That's the kind of decisions that a great quarterback makes. And we saw it tonight. Not saying Jacksonville's defense made it hard for him, but he executed.
Yeah, certainly did. Joe Mixon, too. This is big. I think I mentioned this to you. This has huge fantasy ramifications for what it's worth. And I had hit the in-game under on Samaje Perine yards because with the way the game was going, very competitive, there was very simply no way that Perine was going to get a single carry, barring a Joe Mixon injury. And then 4 minutes left in the game, boom, Mixon. I see him up against the wall, stretching. I'm like, no, this can't be right. Put your helmet on. Put your helmet on. He never did. And fortunately, Perine didn't get much action or much traction there because they were clear run plays trying to get him in the field goal position or just position them. They were already in field goal range. But man, if Joe Mixon happens to be out for any extended period of time, you're going to have to look to Samaje Perine. And I'm not saying that Zach Taylor decides that he still wants to run at as high a clip as he did before, especially if we look at some of the matchups that are coming up, Matt. But they have been running at a high clip. Samaje Perine is also someone that they've used in passing downs as well. So he'd probably be the 3-down back if Mixon's out.
Yeah, I think so too. And, you know, once we saw Christian McCaffrey go down and, you know, basically Chuba Hubbard was this desired handcuff pick, you know, he was a player that most people were drafting at the beginning of the season, that maybe in the last round of their fantasy draft. Perine was a player that probably was on your waiver wire or could still be there, but a lot of savvy leagues had someone pick him up because he was a clear handcuff. Now, I will say, if Mixon does miss time, which we have not confirmed or denied how much time if any, he's going to miss, but I do think you will see Chris Evans, their late round draft pick this year, be active. They did speak highly of him, though take it with a grain of salt. Coach speak is something we can't always trust. They said he has great hands as a receiver, and Perine certainly not known for his work as a pass catcher, though he did have one catch for 15 yards at the end of the game there.
Yeah, and it may be that Mixon only misses 1 week. Maybe he doesn't miss any of them. Joe Burrow stated that he had a minor ankle injury, but yeah, I'd prefer not to get my injury news from the teammate's quarterback, right? So, and
exactly,
we'll see where that goes. I've seen so many times where the quarterback's like, he's fine, and then it's like, you know, so and so has been placed on the IR or season
here's what
ending.
I don't want. Sorry to cut you off. Here's what I don't want. Do you remember this drama that happened with Joe Mixon being questionable for weeks before they shut him down? I really hope there's none of that. You know, we can't predict anything like that, but we really hope it is minor, like Burrow said.
I would certainly hope so. Hey, hit that thumbs up if you're just jumping in. Welcome. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. We'd love to have you hang out with us all the time as we put the videos and the streams out here as much as we can. We're juggling a lot of balls in the air, Matt, with the DFS channel and the odds channel and all of that stuff. But we're pushing the stuff out the best we can. And we want to make sure if we're doing it, that it's the best content that we can. I am not trying to just throw crap out there and being like, oh, okay, well, we got something for Friday. But anyway, the Awesemo odds channel, if you're into betting, is huge. You'll absolutely love it. Ben Ross is one of the sharpest bettors that I know. Truly, I tail him on every sport that I'm betting. I got a 3-play parlay today with 2 afternoon Bellator fights. I mean, the guy hits me up at 7 a.m. He's like, got some MMA this afternoon. And I said, all right, let's do it, man. But yeah, check him out and check out the podcast that he's doing with Matt Kajeski. It is a very, very good one. If you're into college football, I would imagine many of you are. What's it called? Oh, it's something you. I can't play college football here for DFS, which is really unfortunate. Chris is going to kill me right now. Betting you, Ben Ross and Matt Kajeski, everything for college football, all of the best bets for the week, just literally everything. These are 2 of the smartest college football guys that I know. And I'd be listening to a lot more often if I didn't just talk to them personally every day. So check it out wherever podcasts are available, Apple Podcast, you name it, Spotify, we got you. All right, so let's talk about some of these injuries. While we've been doing this show, that we've had 4 technically significant developments. I'd say 3 of them were pretty much foregone conclusions, but one of them maybe not. AJ Brown and Julio Jones are both ruled out. So are Darius Slayton and Sterling Sheppard. So the 2 pairs of receivers, Matt, and the 2 teams have now been ruled out for week 4. That is significant.
Oh, absolutely. And let's start on the Giants side of things here. You know, Daniel Jones is probably still startable, if only because he does have a few weapons. He can dump the ball off to Saquon Barkley. Evan Ingram's going to play, and he has that rushing floor and ceiling boost that he can give you. It's not a great start here against the Saints defense, which has been pretty strong. Not quite as strong in some of the metrics we look at since the start of the 21 season than 2020, but still an above average defense pretty much across the board. I'd love to see Kadarius Toney get any sort of work from, the Giants side of the ball. First round pick. We're talking about the drama of Urban Meyer a minute ago. Urban Meyer said he lamented not being able to pick Kadarius Toney, and we haven't seen anything really at all. On the Jets versus Titans game, AJ Brown and Julio Jones, it's probably a good thing that they are held out of this game. There isn't really a concern about the Jets upsetting this team. That would be a humongous upset. I think you just have to play this as the rest of the NFL watching universe is seeing this, which is Derrick Henry, 1 billion touches. Don't overthink it. Probably bench everyone else besides Tannehill. If you can, stream somebody else.
And it was probably already baked into the line in a large part, but they're still 6.5 point dogs, the Jets at home. So that's without AJ Brown and without Julio. So it tells you all you need to know, Matt. And mostly that Derrick Henry is a force to be reckoned with. God, I wonder if he's used a little bit more in the passing game this week too. But really, I look at some of the other options on this team. There isn't much like Westbrook or Keeney, or is it a Keeney, right?
I think that's how you say it.
Keeney. I've heard people that several different people pronounce it different ways. So I'm still someone in chat frenetically pronounced that one for me. Let's just call him West. Let's just call him Nick Westbrook. Okay. He's somebody that was actually relatively involved, caught a touchdown, and Ryan Tannehill said they actually have solid chemistry together. So, take that again, quarterback speak, take it for what it's worth. Are there any guys, Chester Rogers, or anyone else here that you say, you know what, maybe they're worth a flyer in a deep league or a spot where you've got a lot of injuries?
I mean, no. I mean, I really hope you guys have somebody better than this, than maybe an Anthony Ferkser to look there. I get it. They're playing the Jets. They're a bottom 10 team in team coverage grade. But I think this just points to Derrick Henry seeing so much work.
Yeah, it's got to. I'm not really excited about anyone there. On the other side, though, with Slayton and Sheppard, you talked about it. Could it be Kadarius Toney? Yeah, it's possible, but this is not a good matchup either against the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. Are they back in New Orleans?
I believe so. And is Galladay playing?
So last I saw, Galladay has been limited with that hip, but he was last week too. So I would assume there's no reason to expect him not to play in this one. And Saquon Barkley is another one who was limited in practice yesterday, but he's going to play, right? I think this is just maintenance stuff, which makes sense on 2 of their top options. I just okay, if you have Kenny Galladay, you drafted him, probably as a flex because he fell down the draft board a lot towards the close to the season. Are you starting Kenny Galladay?
I think you kind of have to. I think you have to assume that even in an ugly matchup, you're going to see him get probably a third of the air yards, unless we see a resurgence from Colin Johnson, who had, I think, 7 targets in one game. But I really do think you can play Kenny Galladay here. Just the offense being so concentrated, I think you're going to see Jones throwing mostly to Galladay, Ingram, and Barkley. Yeah, from there it gets really, really murky fast. Sure, we could see Johnson, maybe Kyle Rudolph. He has 7 targets total all season, though. That's really not enough usage.
And Steve McGee says, yes, Saints first game back. Okay, that's what I thought. Full capacity first since pre-COVID. That place is going to be rocking. There's no doubt about it. I by the way like the Saints in this game quite a bit. I don't even mind laying the last I saw it was 6.5, which you get it under 7. I'll take that all day. But we're talking fantasy football, Matt. A couple of other spots that we want to hit on here. I want to get to you guys. I want to make it valuable, not just throwing out players that nobody's playing. The George Kittle injury pop up today is less than encouraging, and he was someone in my start sit video that I put out on Wednesday I really liked. He's one of the best, most dynamic and monstrous tight ends in the league, but he's not guaranteed to play according to Kyle Shanahan. And apparently he's been nursing, I think, a calf injury for the past couple of days and hasn't practiced. I don't like the sound of that, but I can tell you that if he ends up being out in a game with a 52.5 point total, obviously you're looking at Debo, but Brandon Ayuk gets a pretty significant boost from this as well.
Yeah, you have to say that the short area targets have to go somewhere because that's where Jimmy Garoppolo likes to throw. One thing I was looking at when it comes to Kittle has 0 deep targets this season so far. So they're just not using the tight end in that capacity. If you're not using George Kittle that way, you don't have no plans to do it. As you mentioned, this game has a super high Vegas total. The Seahawks have been 3rd worst in the NFL in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing offenses. That tries to take away the fact that you play easier or harder offenses each week. But in general, the Seahawks have been very fantasy friendly to opposing offenses here. So I think you still do see a significant amount of production from the San Francisco side of the ball here. Deebo Samuel, I mean, what else can you say here? He's one of the top 10 in terms of expected fantasy points, career highs in target share and air yard share so far. So he's a must start if Kittle can't go. You're probably starting him anyway. And like you said, now's the time for Brandon Ayuk. I know Trent Sherfield's probably going to play, maybe a little Mohamed Sanu, but I think you could take a chance on starting Ayuk if Kittle doesn't go.
I think you can too. And let me say, I'm not thrilled on that stat that you just provided about Kittle not having a deep target this year, but he is 2nd in yards after catch per reception in the league behind Rondale Moore and 2nd in yards per route run behind Kelsey at the tight end position. So like the guy makes.
Do they have a stat that's angry yards after the catch? Like
I know, right?
Because he has the angriest yards after the catch I've ever seen.
Some of those runs against Green Bay were preposterous. Like just carrying would-be tacklers down the field on his back. The guy's amazing at racking up yardage, but I was also surprised by that as well, Matt, that he hasn't been targeted very deep downfield. You'd think that eventually you just want to get him more involved, but I don't have any interest in stream. I guess the biggest question here too is like, are you looking to stream a tight end here? I just have no interest in Ross Dwelly or any of those guys when you can go to Debo or you can go to Brandon Ayuk or Sherfield or those guys that they already have. Even Mohamed Sanu has been used in the passing game. For me, that's a straight stay away spot unless I'm desperate in a 2 tight end league.
This is crazy here. Right now for the San Francisco 49ers, Deebo Samuel has 30 targets. Really, really impressive. Kittle at 18. No other player on the roster has 8.
Really?
Talk about that distribution of targets. So we could see a huge opportunity for Samuel this weekend, and someone better step up, whether it's Kyle Juszczyk or Mohamed Sanu, Trent Sherfield. Somebody has to catch the ball other than Samuel.
And if you're into that betting life, a lot of these books they haven't factored anything with Kittle, and he's still on the board, and nobody else has adjusted. So if you like Debo this week and you think Kittle might sit, you're getting it at like 69.5 receiving yards for Debo, which I think is pretty attainable here. So yeah, the Kittle news is big. Aside from that though, you've got Lamar Jackson, who's back at practice. I would assume he plays. Dalvin Cook is expected to play. I would assume if he plays, he will not be limited, and that game could shoot out for sure. Darrell Henderson would be the last guy worth mentioning going up against an Arizona defense, which I also think is more flawed than we've thought in through the first 3 weeks. Any of these stand out to you as spots that we need to really closely monitor?
Yeah, I think Darrell Henderson is the bell cow back. Certainly, Sony Michel wasn't very impressive, albeit against a defense that we don't expect running backs to do very well against. So we'll give him that 1 week. But I think Darrell Henderson, if he's active, you're playing him. You probably don't have a running back that has that kind of expected production. And Sean McVay so far has been optimistic that he is going to get his usual workload this Sunday.
So, Matt, when we start talking about buy low, sell high, you always run into scenarios where people would say, how could you recommend trading that guy right now? Or how could you recommend trying to trade for that guy? Or why would you tell me that I should hold on to this guy? He's stunk all season long. Well, small sample size. We're only 3 weeks into the year. You have to look at matchups. There's so much. I mean, you have to contextualize all of this. And we've got a few of them right now. And if you have questions, hey, do I trade this guy? Do I hold on to him? Do I trade for him? Whatever it is, let us know. Very happy to answer them as well. But there's one that you've got at the top that, I love him. I know you love him right now, but people just seem to hate this guy. Odell Beckham of the Cleveland Browns. You're saying trade for him. Buy on Odell Beckham right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Odell Beckham, especially with the fact that Jarvis Landry is on IR, we don't know when he's going to be back and when he's going to be at full strength. I think Odell Beckham is the clear leader in terms of opportunity for the rest of the season for the Browns. And I was really encouraged with what I saw from him last week. Now, you talk about just one game sample. The Bears secondary is not a very strong secondary so far this year, but on just 64.6% of the snaps, he ran 29 routes, which means they were just leaving him out for run plays. Perfect. No problem with that. 9 targets, 5 receptions, 77 yards. And here's what the best part is. His 13.7 PPR points means that it's still a little bit quiet. The amount of targets that he saw on a routes run basis, what you call target rate or hog rate, he's already at top 10 in the league in that one game sample size. Really, really healthy average target distance of 16.6 yards. That would be wide receiver 12. And he got 49% of the Cleveland Browns air yards. That's what we're talking about here. Yes, it's a low volume offense. Yes, they want to win on the ground and maybe have Baker Mayfield throw between 20 and 25 times. But I seriously believe that, especially with Landry out, that 10 of those 20 to 25 could go to Beckham every week. And if we get anything near the efficiency levels we saw a couple years ago, even, you could have a league winner on your hands here. And you got to get him before he has that ceiling performance. Every player is injury prone in the NFL. Odell Beckham is not more injury prone than a typical wide receiver.
No, and you should be looking at last week's performance where he goes, I dislocated my shoulder mid-game, but it's football stuff. That's what he said. It popped back in, kept playing. I never got my legs underneath me, and I was so exhausted after the game that I lost my voice without screaming. All of that he said, right? And he still had a solid game in his first game back. Was targeted 9 times, 3 times 20-plus yards, 3 deep balls, which is more as much as any player was targeted other than Kareem Hunt, who isn't a receiver or a tight end. And he returned from an ACL injury in less than a calendar year. Like he at full capacity. He's only going to get more snaps. He's only going to run more routes. He's only going to get more targets than we saw last week. And you're right. It's a low volume offense, but he's the clear alpha, the clear number 1 in Cleveland. There's no one even close to being, near his level. And if that game against Minnesota happens to see him pop off this week, and for DFS, both of us love him this week because this is a straight blow up spot for Beckham. His value is going to go through the roof. If you're grabbing him now after one game, you're going to be put in a pretty good spot. So low passing volume, sure. But at the same time, a very high target share and low passing volume is going to get it done, especially when, as you mentioned, air yards are a big thing. Baker loves targeting him downfield, get him involved everywhere. I love it. Matt, one that I'm looking at too is for as far as trading for, it's going to be Nick Chubb on the same team. And I'll tell you why. He hasn't been very efficient lately, but PFF has graded Nick Chubb, top 3 in rushing grade over in like 3 straight years. Yards after contact per attempt, one of the best. Yards before contact, which, speaks a lot to the offensive line as well, but that's what you care about, has been one of the best. Broken tackles, always towards the top of the league. His broken tackle rate was the highest in the league last year by far. And while he might not see the insane volume that Derrick Henry does, Nick Chubb is still 4th among all running backs in carries. The Cleveland Browns, and this isn't contradicting what we said about Beckham, because Beckham is still the clear number 1, so, right? But the Cleveland Browns have the 2nd highest run play percentage in the league. All of this is going to, even though Kareem Hunt gets work, Nick Chubb is going to score. He already has a lot of red zone carries. I mean, a lot of red zone carries early on. He's going to get his touches. He might not be heavily involved in the passing game, but there's probably some people out there that drafted him in the 2nd round or even the 1st round that are down on him right now. They want to run the football. Stefanski wants to get the ball to Nick Chubb, and he's going to start having games where he averages more than 3.9 yards per attempt. I can promise you that. Good time to buy Nick Chubb.
What a world we live in where we're saying buy the Browns offense.
Right?
My goodness.
Right? It's true.
No,
though.
but yeah.
This offense is actually more concentrated than you'd think, right? Like you might get some Austin Hooper, maybe some Njoku, maybe your rogue Peoples-Jones target or something. But I mean, really, it's Chubb, Beckham, and then Hunt that are getting the majority of the work in this offense with Jarvis Landry out.
And honestly, that works in the modern NFL. If you have 2 playmakers and then a bunch of auxiliary weapons who are fast, can get people going in the opposite direction. When everyone goes Chubb's way and you hand it off, go in the opposite direction to a speedster like Anthony Schwartz, who had one of the fastest 40s in this draft this year, that can really work. Although from a fantasy football standpoint, you only care about the areas where the offense is concentrated to. So Chubb, Hunt, Beckham, everybody else, especially until Landry comes back. I'm going to go with another wide receiver here, another top tier wide receiver, and it's Stephon Diggs of the Buffalo Bills. I'm telling you guys, this ceiling game, this blow up game is coming, and it's probably coming this weekend against the Texans, if not just after that. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, Dave, on the Awesemo DFS channel about the Buffalo Bills passing and pace of play. They're always interested in passing, regardless of how much they're up by, and they're always interested in going quickly. I think you saw that they were just over 20 seconds per play, and that's when leading. So in terms of the amount of plays that the Bills run compared to the average team, and then you're talking about a player who is top 20 in targets per route run, and now you have a player who's number 4 overall in targets, number 11 in red zone targets, and number 26 currently in fantasy points per game. If that doesn't scream regression candidate, positive regression candidate, I don't know what does. Stephon Diggs is going to have monster games in his future. And by the way, air yards, I know we talked about it a lot already. Currently, Stephon Diggs leads the league in total air yards.
He's going to blow up. It's bound to happen. You said it. They throw at an insane rate. He's going to blow up. You just got to stick with him. You know who I'm selling high on right now, though, Matt? And people are going to say, "Oh, what are you, crazy?" I'm selling high on Jamar Chase. And I know that might be shocking to some of you, right? But if I can get a really good return, there's always you guys know this, not all the time, not in some of these to be clear, high stakes leagues does not always correlate with, highly correlate with sharp people, but oftentimes it does. But if you're in leagues where you're trying to win, it's home leagues or whatever it is, right? There are people that get enamored with certain players, and that gives you like the best opportunity to milk them for everything they're worth. We're not about ethics here, Matt. This is about winning, and if you can get the better side of a trade, you got to do it. There are people that are looking at Jamar Chase being like, man, the guy's a touchdown monster. He's a big play receiver, and he is, and he creates separation incredibly. But the touchdown regression, and we saw him not get in the end zone yesterday, it's going to hit. You can't be scoring touchdowns on like 33% of your receptions or whatever it was. It was a lot. And when that's the case, you have to look at this and say they still want to run the football. For all intents and purposes, it seems like Mixon's injury is minor and might maybe a short-term absence, but nothing significant. They want to run the football, and Jamar Chase is still going to have some very big games. But when you look at the volume of targets, it's not huge. Sure, it's kind of a concentrated offense, and he saw 9 yesterday, but T. Higgins was out, and Tyler Boyd was heavily involved, and Awesemo was involved. So, yeah, I think that Jamar Chase, if you can get a big haul for him right now, and I think it's doable given that he scored so much and is 4th in PPR points in the league right now, not just at his position, among all skill players, to me, that's a good time to at least shop him around and see if anybody out there is willing to take the bait while he's as high as he's going to be for this year. Maybe not next year, but for this year.
Well, I think in this case, you also have to think about it in terms of what are people believing his value to be. Now, I didn't even realize he was that high in terms of PPR points. And if you can get that kind of return value, like a true first round ADP player who's living up to their draft position, you got to pull the trigger. But ultimately, that's not a sustainable amount of production for Chase based on the opportunity he's having. And I think in a situation like this, you can sort of pitch it where like, hey, look at what Justin Jefferson did
I knew
last
that was
year.
coming, yeah.
Those are rare. The Odell Beckham 2014 seasons are extremely rare. And I think just saying that he's really good, but that type of season doesn't happen, that's a really fine way to play this. I'm going to go with a young player who I believe in long term as well, but with the quality of their offense being highly variable week to week and the playing time still coming into question here, I'm going to say you should trade away Antonio Gibson. Now, you probably spent maybe a second rounder on this running back, and he hasn't hit a ceiling game yet. In fact, the highest PPR finish he's had on a week is running back 17. He's already been outside the top 24 running backs twice, and he has not played more than 68% of Washington snaps in any game this season. Also, you talk about PPR leagues where the value of a target is so much more than the value of a typical carry. He's just not seeing a lot of work at all in that part of the game. He ran only 8 routes in week 3 against Buffalo, and that was in a comeback effort. He saw only 2 targets in back-to-back weeks now. I'm really, really concerned here. And the fact that he had that massive 73, I believe, yard catch and run, giving him 100 plus total yards on the week, kind of hides the fact that he's not really getting the usage to guarantee that all the time. I think we've already seen some of the better days for Gibson. If you can get a second round level player for him that's much more consistent, I'm all about it right now.
It's funny because I want to disagree with you because we've talked about it. He has, I think, over 90% of the running back carries in that backfield. But then I looked at the schedule and all right, you ready for this? After the Falcons, they got the Saints, very good run defense. Then you have the Chiefs, good matchup, but they're going to rout them, you would assume, because Washington's secondary hasn't been able to hold up. Then you have the Packers, then the Broncos, then the Bucks, then the Panthers. That is a gauntlet they're going to have to get through, Matt. I think you're right, man. There are some things I like about him, and I think in neutral to positive game scripts, you're going to see it balance out. I don't know how many of them are going to be neutral to positive game scripts. I mean, the Green Bay game's at Lambeau, and the Bucks don't allow any rushing production.
Dave, they're not favored again after this week until week 17.
Stop.
That's what I'm seeing right now. They are not favored in a game until week 17 after week 4. Now that can change. These are early Vegas lines, but a no pass catching running back on a team that won't be favored for another 13 weeks, that's who you trade.
What were I'm pretty sure their odds to win the division were pretty much neck and neck with Dallas.
Yeah. I mean, again, these are early Vegas lines. They change dramatically once we actually get to that week. So we'll see lots of fluctuations here.
But it shows the sentiment right now, the public sentiment and just the overall idea of what this Washington team is. And that's what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, It's not good. It's It's not good. Yeah, Darrell Henderson, by the way, Sean McVay says he will play this week. Don't be surprised when it ends up being a timeshare and Sonny Michel starts getting worked in more. I mean, Sean McVay's done that in the past. I'm not saying it will be, but I can't say I feel great about it. Matt, one player that I want to hold on to is Robert Woods. And I think I can make a pretty good argument for it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking about it. I think I'm also going to sneeze too. So bear with me. If you look into the light, does it make you sneeze? Into the sun?
It helps. It helps me not sneeze.
What?
When I look up, I don't know. Am I weird?
If you look into they say 25% of people who look into the light or into the sun, it can help along a sneeze or it can make them sneeze. I'm one of those special 25%, Matt.
I didn't actually know that.
Next time you go outside, you get that tickle. Look up in the sun, and not too long. I don't want you to go blind and tell me what happens. All right. Just report.
So you're saying look directly at the sun when I next have to sneeze.
Yes, just straight. No, but yeah, take a little peek. It helps. So I'm holding Robert Woods for this reason. His offense is really good. And Cooper Kupp has almost 40% of the team's receptions this year. Okay. He's caught almost 40% of the balls on this team. He has a 35.5% target share. As good as Cooper Kupp is, as much as I love him and think he's going to excel all season, I don't see it's sustainable to the point where Robert Woods continuously has these bad weeks. If you get rid of Robert Woods right now, you're literally selling him at his floor. What is the point? What are you getting for Robert Woods right now? Nothing. There's a guy you drafted in, say, the 4th round or so? Or actually, Robert Woods was being drafted ahead of Cooper Kupp. Consensus. I'm not letting go of him. And Matt, consider this. He still has a 20% target share on arguably the best offense in the league right now. He has a 25% target share in the red zone. So things will turn around. Robert Woods will have himself some games, even if he hasn't been getting targeted on those deep balls. The biggest thing for me is good offense. Target share is still respectable, right? Not where you want it, but still respectable. And you're not getting anything for him if you sell. So all of those things together are a package deal for me to hold on.
Wow, you just summarized my hold player in those 3 bullet points as well. So there's our strategy for how you're looking at what players that are underperforming that you want to keep in fantasy football. And they are usually around this 3rd or 4th round range where there were some warts on their profile going into the season. That's why they weren't 1st round or 2nd round picks, but they're not performing like players who were drafted after them who are exceeding expectations. But when you have good offenses, good opportunity, and situations for them to succeed going forward, those are the players where you have no reason to sell them now. And that's the category Clyde Edwards-Helaire finds himself in currently. 9th in the NFL in opportunity share and one of the most prolific and efficient offenses we've seen in multiple years. Now, the Chiefs' numbers over the course of a 3-game sample size, I don't even care where they really are compared to the league. We know what the Patrick Mahomes-led offense is capable of on a week-to-week basis, essentially from that start of the 2018 season. The ceiling has not changed from that point. And we have seen running backs be so successful with essentially the same exact type of opportunity that we've seen from Edwards-Helaire. Now, I'm really disappointed to see the target share so low, but I do think we are going to see some positive regression, but he's still 10th in the NFL in carries on the Chiefs. And just as we said about Robert Woods, because of his weak game log so far, with the fact that he was outside the top 30 running backs twice already before turning things around a little bit with a running back 18 performance in PPR last week, there's just no reason to get rid of him at his floor because the ceiling is still absolutely there for this second-year player. I'm really having a lot of trouble with DFS and starting him there, but in season long, I just don't think it's good process to get rid of him right now.
I'm with you, especially in this coming matchup too. You want to get rid of him after the Philly matchup. But I agree. I don't see any reason to get rid of him. I think he's going to be fine, as a matter of fact, Matt. I think he's going to be just fine. And if you're targeting him inside the 10, which they have been, I know Darrell Williams got that one goal line carry, but all in all, you fumble twice in the first 3 weeks and your coach keeps going back to you, you have to think something good is going to happen.
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing too, which is there have been some Twitter narratives that you've seen that where they're worried that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just simply not a very good football player. And the underlying metrics are suggesting that really just isn't true right now. 16 evaded tackles, that's 9th among all running backs. His juke rate, which is evaded tackles per touch, is 32.7%. That's 11th among all running backs, over 4.3 true yards per carry. So the advanced metrics say that he's right there with his efficiency, where that efficiency should be. So I'm really not concerned about that at all.
Matt, little rapid fire action starts it, and then all of your questions to close this one out. But first, if you look up top, you see Yahoo Fantasy. You hear Matt and I talk a lot about DFS and betting and stuff. And I wanted to thank anyone that watches our other DFS channel for helping us get to 60,000 subscribers and become, well, actually stay atop the DFS world on the YouTube. So appreciate all you for that. And hey, if you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, I guess it's a good time to ask you to do so. Thanks. Maybe we get to 50 thumbs up here on the show, and subscribe to this channel if you like what we do. But hey, the best promotion you're going to find literally out there anywhere is if you haven't signed up at Yahoo yet for Daily Fantasy Sports, you sign up using the link in the description below. Okay. In the description below, very simple. Deposit $10 or more. And when you do, they'll send your information to us and we will email you with access to 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum, literally everything on the site. For DFS, for season-long fantasy football, for sports betting, we have everything. I mean, seriously, just the menu is endless. And if you want to get into DFS, there's no better time to do it than now. All of these tools were built and used by the #1 ranked DFS player out there, Awesemo himself. Dude's won millions of dollars using those exact tools. He's the one that built the season-long ones as well. So we'd love to have you check it out. Use the link in the description below. And of course, if you go over to Yahoo, they'll give you $10 extra when you sign up. And they have the Everyone Wins contest. It's $15K, $10 to enter, and everyone wins some form of cash prize in that contest. But 2 free months, $180 value. All you have to do is sign up and deposit on Yahoo if you're a first-time user with the description, the link in the description below. That's it. That's all you have to do. And you'll get 2 free months of Awesemo Plus. So, I mean, it's an insane deal. Even if you don't play DFS seriously, dabble. They got the $1 Million Baller and a bunch of other stuff. So we'll see you over there. Matt, start sit. You ready for this?
All right, let's roll.
All right. Where are you going with Cordarrelle Patterson this week?
Where am I going with him? I think he's right around the 50 range in terms of flex plays. So you probably don't have that many top 50 overall flex players. Your lineup's in really good shape if you don't. But you can't deny production. The projection for him is pretty solid, especially in a full PPR league. I think you could project him for right around 10 to 15 points here. So that's not bad at all.
I want to say one thing and take questions. I didn't realize we're up against it. So, and I want to get to everyone who's been watching.
Let's do it.
Start Allen Robinson this week. Please don't. Matt Nagy's saying that the starting quarterback is a game time decision. And I hate that. Personally, I would rather it be Andy Dalton for Allen Robinson's sake for this week. The Lions defense and secondary is so banged up and so bad that unless you've got outright stud that you can play over him, it's really hard to justify sitting Allen Robinson this week. The process of that, in my opinion, is just, it's there. I'm not talking about DFS, Matt, but just from a season-long standpoint, I don't know how you fade your 3rd-round player against a defense that has been torched, humiliated, I should add, by every team they've faced.
Please just get Allen Robinson any sort of catchable passes. Please.
I know it sucks. It sucks, but you got to do it. You got to do it this week. All right, let's take a couple. Odell Beckham or Courtland Sutton?
Odell Beckham or Courtland Sutton? Oh, I actually answered this one in the chat. I like Odell Beckham by a hair here. The projections are really similar, but I just like the game environment against Minnesota. I think there's some shootout potential there that I don't really see from Denver, Baltimore. So I'll just go with Beckham there. Really, really close.
Debo or Ridley?
Debo or Ridley? Oof.
That's tough because Ridley's matchup against Washington's looking a whole lot more appealing these days than it would have before the season.
Yeah, let's contextualize this. You're talking about debating top 30 players here. So that means your lineup is absolutely stacked in your four-man league. You're doing great. But I think you actually still have to go with Ridley. The guaranteed opportunity is just so high. Washington's defense has been really disappointing. I've mentioned this metric, schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed a couple times. They are second worst. That is advantageous for opposing offenses. Second worst in the NFL right now.
Bruisin says, should I trade Tyreek Hill, Chase Edmonds, Marvin Jones? So Hill, Edmonds, Marvin Jones for Antonio Gibson, Mike Evans, and Robert Woods. I'll say this much, Matt. If DJ Chark didn't just get hurt, I might like the other side of that. And I know Marvin Jones wasn't peppered yesterday, but now Marvin Jones and Shenault are going to be in a far more concentrated offense. And Matt, we like concentrated. We need to start a podcast called the Concentrated Offense Pod.
Yeah, nice I dig it.
A nice ring to it, right? Yeah. But no, I'd stick with the Hill side. He's too good, and Marvin Jones is going to be getting a ton of work. All right, let's go. Chris Karen producing the show, throwing some at me right here. Let's see. Okay. What's your thoughts on Curtis Samuel? Should I hold on to him? Activated from the IR, will be active this week.
Yeah, I'll also mention this one in chat, but I'll elaborate here. Yeah, Curtis Samuel absolutely has. They had big plans for him in this offense going into the season. Now, I know Fitzpatrick isn't there, and so that derails some things. But if you're talking about a team that we just went through their Vegas lines and they're not favored really at all for the rest of the season, then they should be passing plenty. And so they're going to need somebody other than Terry McLaurin or Logan Thomas to catch the ball. Expect Curtis Samuel to have plenty of usage, maybe some variability, but I'll say he'll probably average over 7 targets a game. Is that crazy to say? So you're not starting him this week, but I think he's a solid hold.
I think he is too. I'm not getting rid of him quite yet. He had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage last year on a team that was stacked with good options. Bears or Miami D? Bears against Detroit, Dolphins against. That's, believe it or not, that's actually a toss-up for me. I'd lean Bears, but Carson Wentz does nothing to impress me either. What are you doing with Deontay Johnson or Cortland Sutton?
Ooh. So Deontay Johnson is expected to be in. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, yeah.
And Chase Claypool didn't practice today, which is worth noting.
Huh. I worry about if they're not at full strength. Pittsburgh is. I thought it was going to be Deontay Johnson out and Chase Claypool in. But
me too.
If you switch it, basically it's where is the Packers all-pro cornerback, Jair Alexander, spending most of his time. And I do think if you're interested in stopping the Pittsburgh Steelers passing game, Deontay Johnson is the engine of that passing game. And so it would be advantageous for the Packers to stop him. If Claypool is out, that's even worse from Alexander on Johnson's standpoint. So I'm going to go Cortland Sutton.
Okay. Here's a good one. Do I start Moss or Gaskin in full PPR? That one to me is tough because I think this could be a big game from Gaskin. People talk about Malcolm Brown, but Gaskin has still out-touched him 43-17 on the season. Significant. He's a big-time PPR guy. But then you've got the Bills as 16.5-point favorites and a goal line back in Moss. What do you think?
Oh, I hate starting players like Moss, so I'm a little biased. I just checked the projections, and they're a point apart in PPR leagues. So it's really, really a tough question here. But I think I'm going with the usage here, and that's just the type of fantasy football player I am. So I'm going to go with Gaskin. He is a favorite in this game. It's not like it's a bad situation for him. Obviously, there's a lot of things going for the Bills offense in general, but how can we say for sure that the production is going to go to Moss at any point? The projections obviously are really close, but I'm going to go with the opportunity in Gaskin.
I am too. He was in my must start video, not because you love him, but because where you drafted him, you got to take those good matchups. And they have had a lot of negative game scripts this season. They are 0-3. They've played from behind. Carson Wentz has been hobbled. Hopefully he's back at it this week. What else do we got, Matt? We'll take 2 more before we head out. Let's go with Goddard, Higbee, or Gesicki this week. Gesicki, sorry.
Oh, I think Higbee just because of the Vegas total. You know, you're talking about players who on their respective offenses, and basically because they're tight ends and they're not the very top tier, there is some volatility in their opportunity. That's just something that you have to understand about tight ends in general. I think Higbee has the surest opportunity of those three. And then you talk about the expected implied points for both of these teams. Just from a game environment standpoint, I'm going Higbee.
And I'll take this last one, Matt. Keelan says Mike Williams or McLaurin. Hopefully both. I mean, I'd say find a way to play both of these guys, but I really do love Terry McLaurin this week against the Falcons. I think you were talking about him the other day, how much you like Terry McLaurin as well. It's as good a spot as you're going to get for Terry. It is absolutely a fantastic a spot as you can find, but I love Mike Williams and he's been dominant. So both of them slightly lean towards Terry. Well, that'll do it for us. Appreciate you guys hanging out as always. Catch us at Draftaholic, at Lafayette_D on Twitter. Remember that Yahoo promo, 2 free months of Awesemo Plus. All you got to do is use the link below. Sign up, deposit $10 or more. Boom. We'll hit you with an email, you sign up, and you're good to go. Whatever you want on the site, doesn't matter. We'll get you covered. We'll talk to you back here on Monday, talking waiver wire, buy low, sell high, and a whole lot more. Having some fun on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Talk to you soon. Peace.
See ya.